Howdy chaps, and welcome back to another wonderful Graham's Restoration episode. Today we're tackling what will probably be stretched over a few days. So I don't actually know when this video is going to come out, but it'll come out. We're tackling this section of rust, the hole up there, and there's a little hole there. Basically mainly focused in the windscreen area, and that is the last rust in this whole car. For now. One thing I have to say is when I do rust repairs, I can only fix the rust that is currently visible. I can't tell you that in 5 months time or a year or 5 years the car won't have rust come out in a new place because the car's suddenly been used again. It's just luck of the draw really, especially when they're not completely dismantled down to the bare frames. Like if you don't take the roof skin off, well, you can't guarantee anything, can you? You don't take the quarters off, you can't guarantee there's everything was got behind there. So unfortunately, if you don't do it all, you won't guarantee it all being gone. But what we're going to do is work on this section. It should be fairly straightforward, and I'll run you through it right now. So chaps, the areas that we're talking about, we have a smidgen here, we have this bit, the lip and the bit up top it, and we have that little hole in the top of the roof. But we're mainly focusing on this section here, which in theory shouldn't be too hard. What we've got here is 3 layers, annoyingly. So you've got this panel here, which is the top of the plenum chamber. You have the bottom of the plenum chamber, which is also in here, and you have the top of the dash frame. So the top of the dash frame sits on top of the plenum chambers, which are welded together. So what happens is they make, obviously the dash goes in towards one of the last pieces. So the plenum chamber is made in 2 bits, top and bottom, with a couple of vents stuck in it. They're welded together and then stuck in the car as a unit. So they've already been welded together in this lip, and then the dash frame sort of sits in, butts on it, and then they run the spot welder over it again, but not as many holes. So what I'm going to have to do is figure out a good way to get this apart, which is going to suck a little bit, because I'm going to have to make some bits here. I'll probably have to cut probably to about here, across there, and across there, there, and remove this section and do the same here. But what I'll probably start doing is I'll get my fresh bits of steel and I'll measure up how big this lip is, fold it, and then run it through the shrinker and stretcher and make the replacement piece at the top of the dash first, because obviously it's going to be curved going that way and it's going to be curved going that way. So it's going to have 2 curves in it, but I'll do that first, and then I'll probably make this inner section here for here. And then what I'm thinking I might do is then just cut the lip completely out, not even bother about trying to split the spot welds for now, and then focus on rebuilding the inner piece first, which is basically up and then goes like that. And then you can stick this piece in, and then this piece. This is going to take a bit of time and a bit of doing. This one isn't too bad. I'll look at this a bit closer, but I may only need to do a small piece in here. And of course the roof is surprisingly simple as well. I might not even show that one. They're just, those 2 are not even showstoppers. This is the one that's going to be a bit of a fun one to try and do. But these 3 are the last on this whole car, which is unbelievable we've actually managed to do that. So let's get cracking. I'll whittle up a new piece of tin. So I've got some fresh sheets, pretty cheap. I'll use my what are they called? Calipers. Measure the gap on the car, scribe it on here, trim me off a piece that's a bit bigger, and then I can whittle it down. I'll fold the fold and then whittle it down a bit more, and then I'll start shrinking and stretching it so that the shape is about right. I think I might actually have to cut it going that way rather than that way. I use 1mm non-galvanized mild steel. It's my preferred method. It gives you a bit of wiggle room. A little bit thicker than factory, but not by a lot. Once you start grinding down welds and stuff, it usually gets pretty close to the end result. So I'm going to trim that out now and catch you up in a jiffy. Right, so that is, in fact, the top piece made, effectively the top lip of the dashboard. I do actually believe this is a fairly common rust spot for XYs and XWs, and probably any Falcon that shares this same plenum chamber stash design, which would be quite a few actually. So this one, I don't know if you can look down it, but it by no means is that straight in either direction. So it's got two curves in it. One going that way, one going that way. So it's it's an odd one. But using my shrinker and stretcher, if you don't have one, I sort of recommend you go get one. When I bought this from Paramount Browns, it was just this top section, so I just whittled up a little frame for it to stand on. There are better ones that you can buy. I mean, I've seen other people with them. Some have like one side permanently set up with stretching and one side permanently set up with shrinking, so you don't have to keep changing the teeth. There's also bigger ones that can do much better stuff. There's also ones with pedestals and use your foot. But I was suffering from a lack of funds, so I bought the cheapest one I could, and it seems to work just fine. So you got your another set of teeth there and another set of teeth here, and you just undo those little doodad hoo-has and switch them out for what you need. But this obviously was folded, right angled, and then it wasn't actually, it's slightly less than 90 degrees, believe it or not, and that is going to go right there, and you can see it sits very flat against the frame there and nice in this groove. It's obviously going to be a little bit wonky donkey through the midsection there where it's obviously puffed up from rust, but it should fit. I've been told by a few chaps that I can explain things really well. I have no idea. Never thought that I explained things in a good, clear and calm fashion. Don't know what I do or how I do it, but apparently it must make sense to someone somewhere. Guess it's a good thing. Oh well. I don't know, I just like helping everybody. But yes, the next thing we're going to do is now we're going to measure from the very inside of that fold and come up, measure this gap. No, actually changed my mind halfway through a sentence. I think we're just going to do one fold. We're going to pretty much copy that for there, so we'll probably end up with a weld that runs in there, because this is actually not rusty just here. Amazing how you can change things as you go. So then we'll do one going up, and then we can start cutting things out and see what's left of this panel, which is actually the bit that's in between there. So it comes up and then goes like that. So we've made our top piece, we'll now make our bottom piece in a very similar fashion, and then we'll start chopping it open and seeing where we get to. Righty chaps, I have now chopped out the lower, well, I'm talking about this, actually the upper piece of the plenum chamber, but it's only out temporarily because I needed to access this, well, I guess that's the bottom section of the plenum chamber, which comes up. That next bit's going to be fairly straightforward. Basically what I have to do is just whittle it down and then just add in about, I don't know, that much steel and almost a straight line, and just weld it all in, and then that's the middle done, and then I can actually start putting the other two bits in, put the other two bits in, and then we should be laughing like schoolgirls at that point in time. And then all we got to do is basically just drill some plug weld holes through the top two layers so that the bottom is where it all ends up and they all can weld together, and just grind across the top and we're done. So that's what we're going to tackle next. This next bit should be fairly straightforward. Just trim off the rest of the garbage along here and just add in a flat bit at about that high. And it doesn't even have to be perfect, because we can just shape it with the sander if it's a little bit out. We're not really talking a show-stopping piece here because it's just dead flat and it just sticks out the middle of them. But like I said, yeah, so this top section, the dash itself, is welded to the plenum chamber across here. So these two are welded together, and then this is welded onto them. That's just how the factory does it, and that's how it is, and that's how it's going to be. So we'll just get stuck into making another piece. Alright, chapperoonies, I have repaired, and well, not repaired, made a new lower section that came up. As you can well see, it's actually not that easy to see. I've now just trial fitting in my new 2 pieces that go here and here with a little bit of tweaking. That's basically the replacement. And then of course we got this little piece to go back in, but we're making progress. Now I've just got to whittle out the remnants of that, so this will fit in. But what I'll do is I'll put this in last, and I'll put in, if I can unbury it under all this junk, steady. So this has been through the sandblaster, it's looking lovely except for that bit. I'll put this bit in first, like so. Obviously I'll have to trim the rust off, and you'll probably be saying, "Oh, duh." So sort of like that. I'll put that in so I can plug weld through that into this piece, which will then be on here. So this will be part of that, and then that'll go in, plug weld through. I'll drill some holes, plug weld through here into this, grind them flat, and then drill holes in this and plug weld that to this, as well as welding it around there. So we are making good progress. You might say, hey you bugger, you skipped a few steps. Well, that's true, because I am actually trying to get this thing done in what I'd consider to be a reasonable time frame. So we've welded that bottom lip to this top of the plenum chamber, so they are now one. This is ready to go in, but that'll go in last because that's obviously the top of the dash. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this back out, obviously copper spray all the sides and stuff. I'm going to punch some holes into this effectively lower section, and then step them out so I can use a stepping drill and make them bigger. And then I'm going to plug weld from the top to this panel, and then I'm going to sand them flat, and then I can do the same thing again with this panel, and then plug weld through that way into the pair of them. And that way I have all 3 layers welded together. And obviously these repairs are fairly straightforward, you know, glue tab A to part B, but we are winning. I'll catch you up in a second. Now chaps, you might be asking yourself, hey, you've skipped some steps. I sure have, because remember, this is still my day job and I need to get things done in a timely fashion, so I can't do endless video work. I actually do need to get the jobs done. So what I've done since my last bit, because I actually haven't rechecked, is we've put all the holes along here. They were pretty simple, just welded them up. There was nothing wrong with them. It hadn't gone anywhere. Top and bottom layers were fine, so just zap them up, they're okay. I'll treat inside once I'm done. This piece that was removed has had a new lip put on it, welded through there, cleaned up, welded back on. It's now back in, as you can see, welded. I've got to grind through there, and once I've done that, I'll prime this area and up in there a bit more, and then we can just focus on this top bit, which just needs to be plug welded on, and this trimmed up a little bit. That bit will go in, then I just got to fix a hole in the roof, and then we're done. Then we are done. And what I might do is I might just measure these gaps here and just put a couple of screw holes, which I know are missing, because that's where your your windscreen sits in here, but you got your cowl panel that sits here with the little grills on it, but your windscreen mold trim screws has little special clips and they screw in through there, so I've got to put a couple of holes extra back in there. They're not super critical where they go because they can slide up and down on the actual chrome molding, so it's not super critical. They're in exactly the right spot, so I'll just work out the distance between these 3 and those 2 over there and just average them out and just put a couple of holes in there with the drill bit, and then that's done. So literally all I gotta do now is just grind that smidgen there, trim up the next bit, sit it in and weld it up, grind them down. So I've already, as you can see, welded those ones in through there, and we've got good penetration on this side. And the upside about welding through that way is you don't have to try and grind in on a stupid angle. So if you work from the top, it's way easier. So moving right along, let's get cracking. Right, I've glossed over some steps just because I want to get it done. But this repair is now officially done, so we ended up doing bottom, middle and top. Ground down, looking lovely. And then I went along with the big sander and just leveled it out so it was all pretty. I'm now doing the last repair, which is up the top and the roof, which is fairly straightforward. It's just a right angle, and I'm just going to hammer a nail that we've whittled down to the same size, hammer it into the steel and weld on the other side, grind it flat, so we've got a peg back in the middle where that was, and then we're done. Done diddly done. And I'm very happy with how this came out. We measured and drilled 2 more holes, so that's all beautiful. And then today, well, this is probably the last time you'll see this car on the channel because it's going away after today. So yeah, and I've got to grind down these 2, which I went back and checked for a couple of little holes, but pretty much plodding along quite nicely. I'll probably do a little wrap up at the very end and do a little sayonara to this car. So chaps, this is the new piece for the roof. Obviously that way we've had to replicate the stud, which is what holds your windscreen clip molds on. Actually that's turned out pretty darn good. This is probably the most basic type of rust repair you could ever make, really. So you just got to basically replicate what's there. And you know, 2 plug weld holes, copper sprayed on the back, the new peg welded. I didn't go too nuts because I don't really want that. I would like it to have a bit of a foot behind it, so that if there's a bit of yanking on this, it doesn't just rip through on the off chance the nail is weak. But it looks like it's holding up quite well. It's actually replicated really nicely, and this, with a stretch, should fit in there with a little bit of tweaking. And all I've got to do is weld it and grind it and done. And that's it. That's the last repair. It's been a long time coming, so I'll catch up when I'm finished. Alrighty chaps, and that wraps up the chapter for this XY. Pretty much what I was doing for the rest of the afternoon after doing that patch in the roof is I've just been going over the car, cleaning up areas, seam sealing, bit of body shorts, you know, all the good stuff. Mainly focus on seam sealing all the joins and stuff, so we nip this surface rust in the bud. So basically what I was doing is I was coming along all the areas and just wire wheeling them and etch priming them, and then running some seam sealer and then a bit of rattle can body shorts over top. I'm not the greatest at seam sealing, but I don't want any rust to come back. The Ford were pretty lax on their seam sealing at day 1, so if we put some fresh stuff in, it should last another 40 years in theory. So yeah, basically brushed in some seam sealer in all the grooves, bit of etch in there as well. And it's a bit hard to see, but that side's okay. Basically all I did, everywhere I've done massive repairs, I've come along with a wire wheel, etch primed, seam sealed, and then a bit of body shorts over top, and that should keep it good for a long time. And then once it's painted, if they spray cavity wax in all the areas, it should last forever. Basically I just want to seal it up as soon as possible so that it's good for a long time. But this will be the last video on this car because it's done pretty much. Obviously just gonna tweak a couple of small areas with seam sealer and whatnot, but that's it. Car's done. I should have sprayed from a slightly different angle when I did that side, but because it's like it's got little areas where you can see the grey, because obviously I was spraying it a downward pattern. I needed to spray up as well, but no, it doesn't matter. Yeah, also was doing along that firewall lip too. I really don't want this car to have any water leaking in, thanks to my repairs, so just trying to cover all bases. This repair ended up being really nice. Obviously I sprayed a bit of black etch going up, so it's obviously got a little on top, but I'll sort that in a second. But that's it. If you enjoyed this episode, which might not be that good, might be good, might not be, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.